ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it.
And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. And a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. And a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. And a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. And a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it. Ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. And a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. And a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it. It's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. And a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. And a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. And a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. And a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. And a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it.
And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it.
And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. And a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. And a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. And a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. And a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it. Ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. And a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. And a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma.
it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. I'm a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. I'm a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it.
Welcome to another episode of Head to Head with Brian Parker. I am he. And we are back for another week. We've been out for a little while. Hope you missed us. Hope you missed us greatly. But don't fret. We are definitely back. I'll be bringing in my co-host in just a second, but wanted to thank everybody for tuning in, whether you're coming in on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. If you're on YouTube, or if you'd like to be able to catch us on YouTube, please go to Empower TV Network on YouTube, like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. We definitely need the viewership. We definitely want that algorithm to go into overdrive and do what it does best. But we also appreciate you wherever you're watching us. Our show also appears on our Roku TV channel under Empower TV, as well as Amazon Fire. Hey, y'all, I don't know if y'all know this, but cable is getting high and getting ridiculous. And a lot of people have decided, hey, I got a smart TV. Why don't I just connect simply through my smart TV to Roku, Amazon Fire, and be able to pull in the streaming channels that we like. That's why we partner with Roku and Amazon Fire TV. Each of those platforms pull in over 75 million users. So our channel is actually available, just like any other TV channel, to over 150 million users around the world. And we are grateful that you're giving us a little bit of your time. Our show Head to Head is just one of the shows. During the football season, we have a show called Head to Head Sports. We'll definitely love to expand that into other seasons as well. But to do that, eventually we're going to need other hosts, because as much as I know about sports, I don't have enough time to be able to do all of the sports myself. And we definitely like to mix it up with other hosts that can come in and contribute and things like that. Speaking of contributing, we're also looking for other contributors to be able to come onto the show, whether it's to do commentary, whether it's to talk about special topics, whether it's in the world of entertainment, travel, those types of things as well. Definitely want to open and expand that up. Also, if you have a business, if you have an event that's going on and you want to be able to get the word out about that event, what better way than to be able to advertise with us and be able to share that not only to people in the area, but people all over the world. If you are a content provider and you have music videos or podcasts, anything that you would like to be able to air, please reach out to me. Let's see how we can make that happen and go from there and grow together. We're about growing. Empower has been around since 2020, right after the pandemic, and we're still going strong. So, hey, something to be said about that. So let us know how we can partner with you. Our show Head to Head, we are airing it every Thursday live at 7 o'clock. We'd love for you to join us. Now, listen. People say, Brian, I don't know about politics. I catch your show sometimes and you start getting political and this and that and the other. Let me tell y'all something. I'm a straight shooter and I keep it real. Everything in life, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, has some tie to it, some politics. Everything. Cost of gas, how much your money will last as far as spending and purchasing power and things like that. Buying a home has everything to do with the Fed and interest rates. Buying a plane ticket, the cost of milk, everything has something to do with politics. So you can bury your head in the sand and act like you don't know, but you experience it every day. And we don't look for people that necessarily have political science degrees, but you have a degree in life. And if you have a degree in life, you should have some kind of opinion about what's going on. It doesn't mean anybody else is going to agree with it. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. More likely than not, somebody out there may see the same thing that you see, and hearing your opinion really gives us a broader discussion. We're not looking for everybody to be totally in line with everything we talk about. Now, the one only caveat to that is that we try to keep away from conspiracy theories and all those kind of things. We like to kind of stick to facts. I know that's not a common thing anymore, but it's something that we really try to hold dear to us. And we'd love for you to be able to join in, whether you want to join in the chat or whether you want to actually come on camera. We definitely love for you to be able to do that from time to time. You don't have to do it every single week, but as often as you can and like, please let us know. Reach out to me. Let me know that either in the chat during the show or send me an email to theparkermedia@gmail.com. That's theparkermedia@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you and get that going. We have a couple of hosts, a couple of co-hosts, not available right now. So I'm going to bring on the one that is available. Come on in. There she is. Ms. Lori Parker, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing just great.
I know that you were sorely missed. They just missed looking at that wonderful face.
I mean, hey, when I go to sleep, I wake up and I miss this lovely face too. So I do understand that.
Yes.
Anyway, I was just letting the audience, I'm sure you heard all of that, know about what we're doing with the channel and everything. And actually, in probably another couple of months, we're going to even set up some GoFunding, crowdfunding, and that kind of thing to move InPower out of home offices and start looking for studio space actually here in Concord, North Carolina.
So exciting. So super excited.
Yeah. So our plan is to find a location where we'll not only be able to air our content, but be able to offer a space for other content creators to be able to come in, whether it's rent out a studio to be able to film their own TV show, podcast, whatever it is that they want to be able to do and be able to air it and that type of thing. So they can air it on InPower. They can simply record it at the studio and air it on whatever platform that they want to, but to be able to open that up as well. So
that is amazing.
We definitely want to grow, and definitely if you know of anybody that wants to contribute to that, sponsor, hey, we're going forward with this. So
We're working out the business plan. We got it.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be cool. And we've pretty much decided on Concord for the near future of being where we're gonna be based. So why not? Hey, Miss Leslie W. Green, how are you? So we definitely want to grow and make sure that we're giving opportunities for other people. I know in the past there have been places like public broadcasting and things like that. A lot of things. Brad, I'm going to need my own studio with a staff of 5.
I got you, Brad.
Brad, no what you're going to need is your own room to be able to get yourself together and things like that. Staff of 5, Brad. That's just the folks to be able to greet you out the car. We're gonna have to get some other people on the inside to be able to take care of you and everything. So, but we definitely want to have folks be able to come in studio, us meet around a big old table and stuff like that. Hey, Leslie, Brad's laughing. We definitely want to be able to do that. So we appreciate that.
Don't worry, man. I got you. We'll get you a staff of 10. How about that?
Well, he got to ask Mona first.
Oh, okay. That is true. You do need to get permission from Mona. Absolutely.
Yeah. I had to get permission. now. But no, so so many things have been going on, man, over the last couple of weeks since we've been out. One of the reasons that we were out is because we also decided to take on real estate classes. So we've been actually in real estate school since January, and I finally took the test. I went first. I took the test for the school, passed that, took the state exam. Last Friday, the state national exam, and passed that as well. So definitely on my way to real estate license and want to do a lot of different things like that. On this show, we also talk a lot of times about um, wealth and passive income and things like that, and putting yourself in a position to be able to do more. So that's another one of the outlets and streams that I'm looking to do as well. So wish me luck.
Congratulations. That is just an amazing feat.
Oh,
You definitely were studying hard for it. So
hey,
definitely so.
I appreciate that. I don't
And
pay.
again, your lovely face will probably be on a picture on a billboard. Talking about come by this.
yeah, you know, Parker sells. So in the near future, if you're looking to buy or purchase a house in the state of North Carolina, please come by and see your favorite realtor, Brian Parker, at the to be announced brokerage coming up. So hopefully all that goes well. Can't advertise more than that because I'm not supposed to. But anyway, and like I said, anybody that wants to advertise on the show, please let us know. We'll certainly do that as well. All right, Lori. So listen, we've been gone for a while. There have been so many things.
So many things.
Oh my goodness. I mean, we could go so many different directions. So many little mini stories, whether it's been anything about Trump announcing his run, Nikki Haley jumping in, wanting to run. And you know what? I'm going to start right there. So everybody knows Donald Trump, of course, is running to get from being indicted. And he thinks that the easiest way of doing that is running for office so that he can once again try to be untouchable, which I think is actually going to not work out exactly the way that he thinks, Lori. I think that that ship is kind of sailed, and he's not going to be able to escape indictment, particularly because some of these charges, I mean, he can't be protected from too much. There is an investigation going on in the state of Georgia by DA Fani Willis that is seems like it's really closing in. There was that story about the weird girl that was the forward person coming out giving these kind of crazy, giggly interviews and stuff. And a lot of people are going around saying, man, she's jeopardizing the case. And I will say this. I don't think she's jeopardizing the case, but she definitely was out to get her 15 minutes of fame.
I actually thought it was 20 because it was a overextended and it kept playing over and over and over.
Yeah, you know, but well, because people are trying to get tea leaves from the insight of the special grand jury. And the one thing to remember is the reason that it's not going to affect, because people are thinking, well, okay, Trump's going to say that the jury was tainted and things like that. But they have to remember that this is a special grand jury that basically just had subpoena powers, but they did not have the power to go in and indict. So when Fani Willis reached out to this special grand jury, it was just to be able to present evidence to see if she needed to take this information to a regular grand jury and present for an indictment. So it's almost an extra step, and it's kind of something weird that Georgia does that a lot of states don't do. When you're ready to indict somebody, you just go to a grand jury, you present your evidence, and like they say, you can almost indict a ham sandwich to a grand jury because there's no defense. There's no other side of it being presented. It's just basically the prosecutor presenting their evidence to a jury to determine if there is sufficient evidence to put forth the case. It doesn't mean that the person is instantly guilty. It just means that I have satisfied a requirement from you to be able to show that there is probable cause to pursue a case. It doesn't mean that it's going to end in a guilty or anything like that. But instead of us just bringing up stuff, let's put it in front of the grand jury. Let's see what they think. If they're on board with it, then I still get to decide at the end whether I want to pursue. So likely right now, Fani Willis is either presenting it to a grand jury or contemplating whether to present it to a grand jury. The reason we won't know if she is currently presenting it to a grand jury is because it's simply a secret process, which should be. But we will know if it's been done because a grand jury indictment will be unsealed, and then it'll be exposed to everybody to be able to read what the actual charges are. According to the foreperson, there were several recommendations for indictments, particularly due to perjury and lack of candor. When you're in front of a grand jury, you have to be fully honest because you're under subpoena. And if the grand jury feels like you're not being fully forthcoming and honest, you can actually be indicted. So there's been some recommendations for that. She alluded to the fact that some of the names you'll know, some of the names you may not know. And all that really means is that there were some more high profile people that were brought in before the grand jury, including Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, Lindsey Graham, senator of South Carolina. You had other people like Rudy Giuliani being pulled into there. I believe Mike Lindell got pulled in there. So there were some other people, and there were other people too, whether it was Cassidy Hutchinson that you saw in the January 6th probe, but there was a lot of people that got pulled into that. So she's got her hooks and things, and they're a lot further along, Lori, than even where the Department of Justice stands now with their special counsel investigating January 6th, investigating fake electors and stuff like that. So stay tuned to that, but all of that is coming up.
Brad.
Hey,
Brad.
Brad, you know what? I understand, and I totally agree with you about. I don't know if dude is ever going to be prosecuted. I agree with you that it just seems like every time it looks like you got him. I mean, he's slicker than just trying to hold a bunch of oysters in your hand. He is slick. I don't know how much he's going to be able to escape from a state prosecution, but I do see that the Georgia legislature is trying to change some rules right now to be able to constrain their prosecutors. And it looks like their motivation is, again, to try to spring Trump. And he may not ever be indicted on. He may get indicted, but getting indicted, hell, he got impeached. He got impeached, but he didn't get convicted. So he's always right there on the end of it, and we never know what's going to happen. But the wheels of justice have to try. So I'm all for that. We need to be able to confidently say no one is above the law. Now, we know here in America, that's not always true because it just seems like certain people or certain kinds of people seem to always get away with things. And hopefully those things will change as we die off and our kids take over. Honestly, I think that's how some change has to happen, is that the people that hold some of these beliefs will never change from those beliefs. They just have to die. And I don't mean to be morbid or anything like that, but some things
it's Pete. They have to go.
And I don't mean speed up their death.
The time needs to go, and they need to.
Some people just, the way that, and we'll get into that because a lot of that has to do with, the main topic that we're going to talk about, which is the whitewashing of America, and people's beliefs. Lori, and I'll have to look at this more, but Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, they did an investigation on the Memphis Police Department and found a lot of egregious mishandling by Memphis Police Department. And
Louisville, Kentucky. Well.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Was it Louisville?
It's Louisville, but they are looking into doing the same probe for the Memphis Police Department as well.
Right. So, what they found was that police harass Black people. Shocker. I mean, the things that they found, it's like, Black folks been trying to tell y'all this for years, but all we ever hear is, well, if only you had complied, and all that bull crap going on. And it was never about being in compliance. It's about the way that people perceive you when they see you. And Lori, for the life of me, they talk about police training and we just need to pay more money for training police. Let me tell you something. If you automatically see a Black person as a superhuman non-person, that even if you put them in a chokehold, even if you put your knee on their neck for 9 minutes, they can come out of unconsciousness and turn into venom on you. There is no training in the world that will change your mentality. That is not a training issue. People like to say training because they don't want to admit that some people just inherently have biases. And it's
Or it's blatant.
or straight deep down racism.
Yep,
And that's
absolutely.
not something that I can train you out of. If that's who you are, the only thing that's going to change that is you decide you don't want to be that anymore. That's it. It ain't about training. So we're gonna put all this money in there. We're gonna retrain our officers and this and that. And that. That's not a training issue to me.
It's unfortunate that as we hear about, especially with the probes and what they were talking about for in Louisville, Kentucky, and also as they're focused on the Memphis Police Department as well. But again, this is time and time again, it just rings hollow. We all know this, and they're going to keep saying about training and everything else, but it's not getting to the end of the root problem. And I think that at this point, they just are just trying to throw, I guess, money or whatever at it, because they feel like if I'm just going to put on training, it's going to go away, and it's not going away. It's still going to be there, and you're going to still keep seeing these same videos, and this it's just going to be happening over and over. And it's unfortunate that we as a people here in America are just desensitized, and it's just a shame.
Well, and it also reminds me of the whole Kyrie Nichols thing too, where and again, I'm a straight shooter, so I'm just saying. I think there was too much of white America that was happy that it was finally black officers to beat the crap out of a black man.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I think
It was almost
they
like
were just cheering. They were like, "Yes, it's them. It's their people. They
and
did it."
and it was almost like a way of saying, see, it's not that police are racist.
It's not just us.
Now,
You do it too.
let me dispel something real quick. Black folk can be racist against other black folks.
Absolutely.
So, but if you listen to some of these white folks, they think, well, if black officers beat the crap and kill another black person, well, that can't be a form of racism. Why can't it?
Absolutely. And it's just for even that thought. It's just like, why?
But it was almost like to say, see, it's not about race. See, it's not about race.
No, it's about underneath it all what they were trying to say with some of the officers either knowing a personally Mr. Nichols and this one in a connection, and how they sat in and did that. Ultimately, it is about a human being and their faulties. And that, again, going back to the not really focusing on just going to say, I'm going to throw training at it or anything else, or we're going to start with these buzzwords as, oh, we're going to do more community policing, and which I appreciate. But at the same time, your community policing, it needs to have a different focus, because it just seems like it's not hitting where it's supposed to be. And we also need to be providing more opportunities for people in these communities, for them not to detour from committing crimes or doing that.
Honestly, I'm gonna keep it real. What it comes down to is power. And if you go back even to the times of slavery, yes, color was the main element in it, but it was really a power trip. Somebody trying to hold power over somebody else. Now, it took the form of white holding power over black, but it's always about power. Those that have power like to be able to look at those that don't have power as beneath them. Police inherently have power because we give a lot of police powers away. The ability to search, the ability to arrest, to detain, to question, all those types of things. And for some people, they should not have power because of the way that they use their power, the way that they interact with people that don't have that same amount of power. So whether the officers were black, whether they were white, it doesn't really matter. They were in a position of power and authority, and they abused their power. Now, do we see instances of whether it's a white officer killing an unarmed black man or black woman or whatever the case may be? Yes, that has been prevalent, but it doesn't mean that that's the only form of abuse of power. And it's never been about white officers versus black people. It's been about police versus black people. And unfortunately, a lot of times, even when black people become police officers, the color that they see or that they align themselves more than with being black is blue. And there is a fraternity within police that, hey, we're all on the same side because we're on the blue side. It's not about black and white, it's about blue. And blue is a totally different power. So did the blue do what the blue normally does to black people and kill them? Yep. Did it matter that they were African-American cops instead of white cops? Not at all. They were still police officers. So, white folks try to split the baby and go, see, they were black. But I'm saying, well, see, they still had a badge. They still swore an oath to the Constitution. And they still violated that Constitution and somebody's constitutional rights. All of those things still were the same. The only thing that they could hold on to was the actual color of the officers, which to me was the least important thing of the whole situation. Number one, another mother lost her son for no damn reason. Because police sit there and feel like that if I feel like that you are giving me 1 ounce of disrespect, that gives me the right to beat the living crap out of you. And if you live, you live. And if you don't, I don't even give a damn. And that's what it came down to. They had no regard for that man's life. I'm glad that they got convicted. I hope they throw the book at him. I hope they bury him under the freaking jail because that's where they need to be. It's not going to be a deterrent. Nobody needs to come in and do training to tell you that treating black people like garbage and trash is a bad thing. If you need training to train you in that, then your parents went wrong. Next time, I recommend getting a condom.
Or a vasectomy, but
Either way, you don't need to give birth. If you gotta sit there and wait for your kids to be grown ass people to teach them not to treat other people like straight garbage and trash, don't have no more kids. That's not something that my tax dollars need to teach you in some training. Matter of fact, maybe we need to screen these people better when they're applying for the police academy and say, okay, let's give you a scenario. A black guy's just jogging down the neighborhood. Do you A, stop him and track him down like an animal? B, ask him to show some ID? Or C, unless he's committing anything or looks or there's any probable cause, drive on down the street and mind your damn business.
I'd go with the last one.
If you pick A or B, then maybe we need to hold back your application this year for the police academy. Come back when your mama done retrained you, but don't let the taxpayers spend their money training you on something that you should have known before you filled out this application.
Also, I think in addition to that comment as well, is that they also need to make sure that any type of discipline that a person has received is part of their record, that they can't go from police department in different cities and then commit the same thing, and then you see that as a pattern. So then when there is a bigger event or something has happened, and then you're going back in the history, and then we've seen, oh, he did the same thing in the other police department in this other city, and he was just able to go from job to job.
That's a great point, because if you're convicted of a crime in Georgia and then you do something in California, where somebody can run a background check on you, and the Georgia report will pop up, the California report will pop up. And
I don't know about with specific departments, because I was just thinking of sometimes it doesn't. They don't communicate.
No. You're right. What I'm saying is, if you're a criminal or you get convicted of something as a civilian, your background checks are readily accessible.
Yes.
For police, there is no centralized record keeping. So to your point, if you do something in one state or one municipality, that doesn't necessarily mean that another municipality will be able to pull up your record.
Right.
And that has been proposed by Congress and is being fought tooth and nail by Republicans because they don't want to sit there and give that much power to the communities that police are sworn to protect and serve. So they don't want the transparency of it, and most of it is because police unions are against it, and that's who whether it's because of that, whether it's because of liability, they just don't want to have that happen. And that's one of the easiest things that should be able to happen is be able to vet an officer's background to make sure that they haven't had any issues. If I was in the military and I was dishonorably discharged, that would be a record. Somebody could sit there and pull up my military record and see that I was either honorably or dishonorably discharged. So that's it's kind of weird though when we talk about police. We don't want to have as much transparency as possible. And people are saying, hey, Brian, 99.9% of officers always do the right thing and everything. Then why would that be a problem? Because then if I went to go look at 99.9% of the records, they would be crystal clear. There wouldn't be a whole bunch of errors and marks and inquiries and charges and dismissals and all that stuff to look at, because apparently 99.9% of them's records are just fine. So if that's really true, what are you afraid of?
It's just sad. It's just very sad. But it goes back to accountability. And no one wants to really be accountable. And it also goes to your point about power.
Well,
ultimately,
it's not that no one wants to be accountable, but those in power don't want to be accountable to the people that are under them. And whether this is police departments, whether it's in politics, as far as politicians don't want to be accountable to the people that they're supposed to be sworn to serve, their own constituents. They don't want to be accountable to them. They want to be able to get in front of you, kiss a bunch of babies, eat pizza with a fork in front of you, and get elected. Next thing you know, they forget all about you. They don't sit there and listen to you or anything like that. They just sit there long enough to get your vote. And they do a lot of advertising with the money that they get from a lot of big donors and everything else, but they're not really listening to you. And why? Because once we give them the power, they don't need to come back to you if they're in the House for 2 years and if they're in the Senate for 6 years. And I can cause a whole lot of mess in the meantime. Speaking about causing a whole lot of mess, Lori, have you seen these fools in Congress, in the House of Representatives? Lord have mercy. This is going to be a crazy 2 years with Kevin McCarthy as the speaker, as the somewhat speaker of the House. He basically,
I think he's just a puppet. I think he's just really a puppet.
Well,
I think he's like the Manchurian candidate in the movie.
Well, it's not so much that, but this man wanted so bad. It was almost like you just want something so bad to happen that you'll give anything. You'll sell your soul to get it. And this dude did everything he could to get this position, knowing that he gave up basically everything that made it be what it is. So you're a speaker in name only, because all it takes is one dissenter to bring it to the floor to get rid of you. And that could mean you're in right there. Now, here's the thing. That ain't likely to happen, because you saw it took 14 rounds, I think it was, to get him the gavel. How many rounds would it take Marjorie Greene? How many rounds would it take to get Paul Gosar? How many rounds would it take to get Matt Gaetz? How many rounds would it take to get Lauren Boebert? How many rounds would it take to get Chip Roy? It would go on forever, and they know that. But they still hold it over his head and basically made him give up a lot of concessions just to be able to say, see, Ma, I'm speaker. My name tag says so. Look, I got the speaker's office. I got all the power of the speaker. No, you don't. You gave it away. You have the same majority as Nancy Pelosi, and she didn't have to give any of that stuff away. So say what you want about Nancy Pelosi. Some people love her, some people hate her, but she sat there and managed the same margin in the House and was able to get things done. What are they doing? They ran on crime. Oh, there's crime everywhere. Crime. There's groomers everywhere. Everything. Watch out for groomers. Watch out for the illegals. They're coming across the border to rape your kids and screw your wife and take over and replacement theory. They're signing up all these people to replace you. They're going to replace you. Then they get in and they want to have bills that you can't abort a baby once they're born. Lori, I want to explain something to the audience. There has never been anything called an abortion after somebody is born. After a child is born, that is not an abortion. That's murder. There have been times when there was a birth that would happen where it was not viable because it could not live, or it was stillborns, they're born dead.
Stillbirth, yes.
It's not an abortion.
No.
That is a medical procedure.
Yes.
But trying to attach bills to things that don't exist, like after birth abortions, which is not a thing, is disingenuous at best and just flat out wrong and crazy. But that's being floated out there a lot. Oh, Democrats, they just want unilateral abortions all the way up until birth. No, nobody's saying that. There's a certain amount of weeks that people that scientists have determined a fetus can survive outside the womb. Until then, it's not been considered abortion. Now you've got all these different bills coming up, Lori, where they want to sit there as soon as that egg and that sperm see each other, like that sperm going, is that an egg? Bet. And as soon as it touched that egg, oh, now that's a person that has full human rights. Now, look, there's a lot of people that watch the show that may feel a certain way about abortions. Let me just say it to you like this. And you're going to hear me say this, whether it's abortions, whether it's transgenderism, whether it's folks that are lesbian, gay, whatever. If you don't support abortions, don't get an abortion. If that's not something that you're in favor of, then don't do it.
Like drag shows and books.
Yeah. So, and we'll get into those too, but specifically about abortions, if you're against abortions, whether it's your religious belief, your moral belief, or whatever your belief is, nobody is making you get one. If you become pregnant and you don't believe in abortions, you won't get one. That's it. Now, just because you believe that, just because that is a deep conviction to you, does not give you the right to make that decision for somebody not you. Because when do we have it where what I want has to cover everybody? Now somebody's going to say, well, Brian, there's laws against murder. There's laws against this. And just because some people don't want murdered, we wrote those in the laws. That's true because that had an effect on other people. So me murdering somebody has an effect on that person that I'm murdering and their family. My wife having an abortion is a decision between me and my wife. It has nothing to do with you. That's the difference. See the difference? Now, what abortion advocates will say is, but Brian, you're missing another person. You're missing the the baby that's getting aborted, and somebody needs to be able to speak up for the baby that's being aborted because the baby doesn't have a voice. If the baby cannot live outside of the womb, it is not viable. It cannot have rights unless it can be sustained outside of the womb. Now, that's science. Now, that kind of goes into, Lori, where we were going, where things are trying to be whitewashed, where facts don't really mean anything anymore, where it's about feelings. I feel a certain way. I don't care about the facts. Whether it's all the people that felt like Donald Trump won the election, no matter what the facts say, whether people felt like COVID was real or not, even though people were dying. And I still get people. I had a guy tell me the other day that COVID still isn't real. That there were no meat freezers in New York. At this point, I can't convince you. Yeah, he said they were empty. He says, and the ones that were full, it wasn't because they caught COVID, it was because they were given COVID. You know, when people get that far gone, I'm like, okay, whatever. There used to be a time, Lori, I remember that we were sent to school so that we could get a well-rounded education. And what that meant was being exposed to a lot of things that maybe we knew, a lot of things, hopefully a lot of things that we didn't know, a lot of things going on in the world so that we could become more well-rounded and more well-versed in the world. Not just our own little ideologies and belief systems and things like that. We were sent to school to be able to learn how to critically think, be able to analyze, problem resolution. It was supposed to be a thing of diversity where you go around and you meet people from different backgrounds and paths in life, and you learn different things in different cultures. And the whole thing with the diversity is that you were supposed to be able to do those things so you can have an appreciation for the fact that what makes us all different makes us all better. I remember, Lori, that even when I even got into my career in hospitality, one of the first classes I had to take was diversity training, where I had to learn that it's not the outside of my skin, it's the person inside that makes me who I am, and my background and my life lessons that I've learned and somebody else's life lessons that they learned. We put those things together, and that's supposed to make us stronger and better. That's what I grew up learning, that it's your differences that make you better, not everybody being the same.
Well, it's not that. I think nowadays it's more about just checking a box or just making sure that you are adding on those buzzwords. You know, we do this, or or what I've always heard is from some people talking about, well, yeah, I got a black friend, one, so I guess I that's me. But that's what they are. It's just like it's just checking off a box. There's really no meat behind it because everyone is so into their just being able to feel like they're being shamed. But in order to grow, you have to know differences between people and to know what was done in the past should not be repeated going forward. Like the mistakes of the past shouldn't be brought forward. And I'm thinking right now everyone is just trying to kind of be like, well, no, this never happened. Yes, it did. And people are just not owning up to that, and they're just checking a box to say, oh.
Well, you're going into like racism, and there's people that don't want to accept the fact that America was built on racism.
Yes.
That's a touchy subject for some people because it forces them to have to acknowledge that the stories that, when I was a kid, I was told about Santa Claus. I was told about the Easter Bunny. Hell, I was even every Thanksgiving we had to sit there and make turkeys and put damn feathers on our head and walk around and blah 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 blah, blah and do Indian dances and rain dances and all that stupid shit. And everybody wants to stay in that bubble of believing all that stuff. Like, man, okay, y'all, I hope your kids aren't listening right now, but there is no tooth fairy. It's your parents putting that $1 or $10 under your bed. I just want you to understand that there's no tooth fairy. There is no Santa Claus. Okay? That's your parents spending their hard ass earned money or stuff that they put on layaway for the last 6 months to be able to give you a Christmas. Okay? There is no Easter bunny. There is no rabbit walking around. Why is a rabbit walking around with a basket of eggs in the first place? It don't make no damn sense because chickens, the eggs come from chickens, yet a bunny sat there and stole them.
Well, you know.
Anyway, my point is that those stories were given to kids to make them feel good. There ain't no stork that delivers babies. That ain't how it's done. There's got to be a little bit more slapping and clapping that involves that process. It ain't got nothing to do with no stork. Even though sometimes you see how ugly some of them babies is, you wish that stork come take his ass away. But that's a whole nother story.
Babies are beautiful.
Not all babies. No. I'm gonna have to put that in where I don't like. Everybody think their babies is cute. No, sir.
In their own way. I said in their own way.
Hey, you can love ugly as much as you want to. You just don't need to call it cute. Don't be now somebody, well, Brown just trying to speak it into existence. Speak it over there. Because what I see right here, that ain't hitting right now. Now it may turn into a cute baby later, but sometimes when them things come out, it look like a mess. Hey, I just gave it a real. But anyway, don't get me off subject with the ugly babies. But what I'm saying is that when we hear these stories to make us feel good, we have to understand that these are just stories. But our history, the history of this country, is not based off of feel-good stories. It's based off of the truth. People don't want to believe that Indians, Native Americans, were pushed away from their land by ancient white folks trying to get that land, sell the land, and take over the land and stuff like that. Again, power. There's power again. Wanting to take power and hold other people that don't have the power beneath them. That was the first instance of that. Well, that was the making of America right there. From settling into America. People were sitting there doing that, Lori. I don't know how much earlier you can get. Then slave trade came, and then we sat there and there was another power struggle. This group of people over this group of people, bringing them in, making them work, beating them, lynching them, raping their wives, all those things. Which is why I think, now when they talk about the others coming to, replace them and rape their wives and stuff, what they're really saying is, we know what we did to y'all, and we think that y'all might turn around and do the same. That's why they say that. But anyway, I digress. But what happens is that was a power struggle. Native Americans were run off their land and everything else. A lot were killed, slaughtered, and everything else that is just unmentionable. There was the slaves, same kind of thing. What happens is folks now will say, well, that was a long time ago. We don't need to bring that up. But you like to bring up the Civil War. Hell, you get mad because I think that your statue is offensive. You don't mind bringing up the Civil War, but what you do mind is bringing up the fact that you guys killed a lot of Native Americans and you enslaved African Americans and treated them as not human. But to bring that up now is, that's just your way of making my kids feel guilty for being white. Well, what is it supposed to do to the black kids in the class? Make them feel guilty that their ancestors sat there and had people sitting there sleeping with the women and beating them and all that kind of stuff. What is this about? It's supposed to teach them where we came from and where we are today so that we never go back. You have to know where you come from to know where it is that you're going. And the fear that, I think it's, to me, Lori, it's insulting to every child when an adult says, I'm afraid that if you start teaching about racism and what happened in the past, that it's going to make our kids feel guilty about being white. To me, you're insulting the child because you're saying you're too stupid to figure out that you had nothing to do with that. But what we want you to do is learn from that. So, because you're our future, and we want to make sure that you understand that the way that we started this was not correct. And we don't ever want you guys to go back to that because that's not the way that we should treat people. Why can that not be what's taken away from history, good or bad? Don't you learn from what works and you learn from what doesn't work and you learn to move on. But if you don't learn that it happened, now the problem that I think, Lori, is that there's a lot of people, especially the ones that say make America great again, that still want those things to be in place. And what you're really basically doing is saying, I don't want my child to know how in line I'm really with those things because, hey, now they got a friend in school that has a disability. Hey, now they got a friend in school that, you know, may be gay, or their parents may be same-sex parents, and that's normal to them. That's not a big deal. They're still friends with those people. What they're afraid of is that their kids are going to be more flexible and open than they are willing to be. And they want their kids to be just as closed-minded as they are, and going to school keeps that from happening. Kids have a way of being around other kids, and they develop an acceptance of each other, regardless of how you look, where you're from, how much you make, and things like that. That's the grooming that they're worried about, is that the kids are actually going to be a lot more cultured than they are. Oh, I'm sorry. This is all called being woke.
Well, I just have a question. So, if that is the fear, they have options for homeschooling. I mean, if
No, no, no,
if
no,
this
no.
sounds like they may want to
I gotta
segregate
go to.
themselves to their
I
own
gotta go to
community.
work. I gotta go to work. I ain't got time to watch the little bastards. I gotta go to work.
Well, apparently you all have that function that to be able to.
Mm-mm.
You shouldn't be able to just jump your kids in school
Well,
because you need a babysitter.
some of them do elect to send their kids to private schools and things like that. Those that can afford it. But what they would and going along those lines, though, that is the ultimate goal, is to totally eradicate public schools, because public schools are not under their control. That's why they're trying to gain control of public schools through school boards and other things like that, because they are trying to turn public schools into private schools so that they have a lot more say on the curriculum. Just like in Florida, where they're sitting there trying to say, okay, you can't mention anything about gay, can't mention this, can't do that. African American Studies AP can't be done in Florida because it covers a lot of different areas and things like that. Okay, so we don't want to do this because you have a problem talking about queer African Americans.
Or books.
Or books, because the
or books in libraries, and there's a banned book list.
And I've never understood that, because all these people come at it from a biblical perspective. Two things with that: there's supposed to be a separation of church and state. And if you ask any of these folks, they will tell you unequivocally that America was built on Christian beliefs. That is 100% not true. And you can't get them to find that anywhere. There's nothing that will ever say America was founded on Christian beliefs. except for the people that believe that. That goes back into the whole thing of it's a great story, but it ain't true. And secondly, how much killing, adultery, sex is in the Bible?
Lots.
I mean, my God, you talking out of both sides of your mouth, because if you're talking about banning books that talk about all kinds of things, the Bible has all of it. Yeah, that's supposed to be the standard. And it can't be, because it would totally contradict what it is that you're saying.
Well,
So
maybe they're only doing certain parts of the Bible,
Of course.
selecting certain verses or
Of course.
certain, yes.
Yeah. Well, and that's what, honestly, that's what people have done with the Bible since the Bible's been out, is cherry picking the things that I like and kind of dismissing the things that I don't like. So I'll pick the things that I like to make me feel good, but the things that would go against what I say, I'm not going to pick it. Either the whole book is valid or none of it is valid. I'm sorry. You can't say, well, certain parts of it I don't really know about, but other parts I'm deeply convicted over. Can't choose your conviction. Either you believe the Bible is the full word of God, or you think that it's not. You think that a bunch of dudes sat there and wrote it and felt like they were inspired, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it was word for word dictated to them by the big man himself. I mean, it can't be both. It can't fit your narrative. But that's what a lot of people do with the Bible, is they use it to fit one narrative, but not another. Perfect example of that is people use abortion as something biblical. I ain't seen nothing in the biblical that say you can't sit there and abort a zygote. I ain't seen nothing in the Bible about that. I ain't seen nothing in the Bible that says a lot of these different things about you can do this, you can't do this. People come up with their own their own interpretations, and then they turn it into their own doctrines and everything. And there's a word for that. It's called perversion, because you're perverting what the word says and trying to, you can't ad hoc the Bible and say, well, I'm gonna sit there and take what this says and put my own meaning and spin on it, and then wrap it around something called divine intervention. I was led to believe this and led to believe that, and I'd be like, okay, well, how do I know you was listening to the right voice? How do I know you even heard a voice? You just not saying that, anyway. But you get these folks that'll sit there and say that they're making all these decisions, and they're openly admitting it now, Lori. They'll say, hey, I'm a Christian and I believe this and I believe that. Okay, that's great. I understand you're the governor of Florida and you think that you're a Christian. Now, I might really question whether you really are or aren't, because of some of the policies that you put in place. Because the way I understand Christian beliefs is, Christianity is not supposed to be built on hate. But when you're sitting there basically saying that if you look like this or you do this, then we're going to persecute you, that's not what Christian beliefs are about. Well, I don't accept transsexuals. Okay, well then, if you're a dude, then don't put on a damn dress and a bra and some lipstick. I don't know what else to tell you, bro. Somebody else might feel comfortable with that. Who are you to tell me that right now I can't sit there and put on a wig and call myself Brianna?
A little bit of a stretch, but okay. Here we go. It needs to be straight, because that looks crazy.
How's that?
You look like Opie, but okay.
And no, I'm not a crossdresser. I just happen to have that on hand. You never know what I have on hand. Anyway.
Oh no, you have a bag full of tricks.
But no, my point is, listen, just because somebody doesn't go by the things that you believe in and things like that, you cannot take your power and overpower them and make them less than and not accept it. Accepting somebody does not mean that you agree with the way that they live. And I think people have to understand that there's a difference between the two. Just because I accept somebody because they're gay doesn't necessarily mean that I prescribe to being gay myself. That just means that I've accepted the fact that you've made a choice to do that, and I'm not here to judge you for that. That is your decision as an adult, as a grown ass person. That is your decision. It is not up to me to say I don't believe in that, thus you do not exist. Who the hell are these people to tell people that your existence isn't as good as mine because my Bible tells me that there's only a man and a woman? And this is the definition of those. And then they'll say, well, I'm not telling people what to believe and that they can't worship who they worship and stuff. Yeah, of course you are. If you're basing the way that you want to legislate, the way that you want to sit there and accept people or not accept people based on your standard, then that is exactly what you're doing. You just don't want to call it that, but that's what it is. You're telling people that if you're gay, you're trans, hell, now you're trying to tie drag shows into trans. And drag shows have nothing to do with trans. Drag shows have been around for hundreds of years. Now you're trying to over sexualize everything. When has a drag show been anything sexual? Most of them are just performances. Men dressed up like women singing bad Patti LaBelle songs and Donna Summer songs and Gloria Gaynor songs.
And usually we'll be having brunch.
Yeah. I mean, when did me putting on a dress and acting like I got boobs and trying to look like Marilyn Monroe get sexual?
Okay, Mr. President.
That's crazy. But people are so fixated on things that are different from them that there is a hate. And that hate, a lot of times now, is dangerous because there are people out there that are now taking arms, which I will say this too. It's very rich for me to hear Republicans talk about they're worried about a zygote living, but you ain't worried about kids getting blown away in schools with AR-15s. I will say
Or
that.
anyone going to the store or anyone
Yeah.
else.
But it's very rich for them to say that we're pro-life, but after the child is born, you're trying to vote down SNAP benefits so kids can't eat on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
It's very rich to say that you're pro-life, but you're not for raising the minimum wage so people can get themselves out of poverty so that they can feed their kids on a regular basis and be able to eat the things that you guys would throw away in a heartbeat. It's very rich to say that you're pro-life when all of those things exist. Again, either you are or you aren't. Just own it. That's the biggest thing. Own it. So, any thought on that?
Well, I just have to totally agree with you on what you just said. It's just a shame. But again, it goes back to the crux of the entire conversation is talking about it's about power and that they're really afraid about losing power and any differences, and they will do things by any means necessary in order to be able to shape their own narrative.
Yeah.
And it's just it's just sad. It's just
It
very
is.
sad.
It is. I mean, it's very insulting.
And plus Congress right now is looking like a clown car.
Yes.
It's literally a
It is.
clown car, and
It
it's just ridiculous trying to watch some of the debates and then in the committees. It's just absolutely talking about that they're trying to talk about talking down white supremacy and having an argument about this, and that they refuse to budge. And I'm like, you don't scream in a building fire and there's no consequence. But again, it's not happening to them. And until it happens to them or someone that they know or something else, maybe there might be, but maybe not, because these people are so self-absorbed.
Yeah, it really just comes down to people wanting to not be challenged or put out of their comfort zone. And a lot of times I've performed the best when I've been challenged and pushed outside of my comfort zone. Um, Hell, everybody knows I'm afraid of heights. And for me to have now zip lined twice is definitely me coming out of my comfort zone. That wasn't easy. But it was something that I had to do. People wouldn't believe when I grew up as a kid, heavily introverted, very afraid to talk in person and everything else like that. And I just had to step out of my comfort zone because I knew I wanted to be able to be in front of people, and I knew I had to get over that fear. So a lot of times the best comes out of you when you have to step out of your comfort zone. But there's just some people that believe that instead of me ever having to step out of my comfort zone, you need to conform to my comfort zone. I don't need to feel I don't need to feel sorry and sad for the fact that you people were beaten back in the day or that we treated you a certain way. I don't need to be reminded every time I read a history book of what my ancestors did to you. Can't we just forget about it and move on? All those types of things where people are kind of taking history and going, well, can't we just gloss over this and gloss over that and highlight more of this and highlight more of that, and everybody can feel good about everything, and we can just move on as a society without having to bring up the bad stuff that happened. No, it's all encompassing. It's like I told somebody today, I ain't been a perfect person all my life. The bad things don't define me, but they are a part of me. I don't distance myself from those things, but I don't accept my future and my character as those things. I take it as those things refined my character and refined who I am by showing me where not to ever go back to again. The whole thing about history is learning and moving on, not whitewashing and moving on. If you whitewash it, there's a very good chance it could happen again. If it makes you feel bad, it should, because you know what? It was bad. Slavery was bad. If that makes you feel bad, good. It should. That's the point. You shouldn't get a lesson about history in school and you don't walk away going, damn, that is terrible. If you get a lesson in history, Lori, and you walk out going, I don't see anything. What's the big deal? We need to do this. We need to go back over this one more time then, because you didn't get it the first time. If you walk out of any of those things, and then the last thing I'll say about this too is, and then they're trying to again blame critical race theory. If you ask a regular person on the street right now, what is critical race theory? I guarantee you, they could not tell you what it is. It's a catch-all phrase. Anything that has to do with race, oh, that's CRT. That's CRT. Okay, can you define what CRT is? And it was funny because the Young Turks sent out one of their correspondents to a couple of Trump rallies asking people, so tell me about CRT. What is it? Well, I don't really know all the particulars about it, but I just know I don't like it. If that ain't an ad for why we need education, I don't know what is. But a lot of people kept going around saying, well, I don't really know it all. I don't want to get into it. You know what I don't want to get into it means? You don't know a damn thing about it. You can't articulate it because you don't. If you understand something, you can articulate it. If you can't articulate it, it's more likely because you don't know what the hell it is. CRT, Lori, isn't that complicated in its essence. But because they've used it to describe everything, They don't know what it really means anymore. It was never that complicated of what it meant, but because you started throwing, it's like the more you throw on it, you can't see what was originally there because now you just thrown so much against it, you don't know what it used to be. And that's what CRT is. CRT started out as one thing, then they just started throwing so much stuff against it that you can't even see what it used to be, what it originally was, because they've attached so much to it that it doesn't mean anything other than black people. That's all it means. When they say woke, black people. That's all it means. I can't just say the N-word anymore, so I'll just say woke. Woke is the new N-word. I can't say it. I can say woke. Because woke is a social acceptance of the others or things that aren't normals for me. So that's being woke. People have to step out of that, Lori, and they really do. Final thought?
Oh, well, I was gonna take a few minutes just to kind of put a highlight on our favorite part of the show as we wind down.
So anybody that's new to the show, at the end of the show, we like to have a little levity, and
just a little.
We talk about things that we really don't like. It can be anything from just regular things that happen to you throughout the course of the day, whether it's things in traffic, things at your job. There's a lot of things that we don't like that in a lot of ways are just funny. And it's funny because it happens to all of us at some point in time, or a lot of the things are very relatable. Lori, you know what I don't like?
What, Brian? What do you not like?
I don't like people that think the word like is a word that you need to use every 2 seconds. I literally heard these folks talking the other day, and I've heard it a couple of times now, and every other word was like. I cannot remember having a conversation with somebody and it goes like this. So, Lori, I was like at work today, and like I was sitting there going through all of my stuff, and like every time I sat there and was about to do one thing, like something else would distract me. Like I'm going on, like, what's going on? Like, why can't I just sit there and focus on this one thing? Like it was just driving me crazy. Like, does that ever happen to you? Like where you're sitting there like trying to do one thing and then another thing happens, and like when you're trying to then refocus, like the next thing you know that you can't really like get everything that you want to do. Like it's just crazy, isn't it?
Obviously, because you sound nuts.
That was the essence of the conversation, and I'm going, why are you using like so much? Why? See, this is again why people need to stay their ass in school
and learn cursive.
And learn. Oh God, that's a whole other thing. Kids don't learn
and
cursive.
Learn cursive. Please
but,
give me
yeah,
learn
I mean
cursive.
that just drives me crazy to hear people try to have a conversation and like. What is that placeholding every time you say like? It's almost like a comma. You know,
or the
like
word
well, yeah, you know, that used to drive me crazy too. When people back in the day would say, get it out. You know, have a thought, you know. So, but like is the new and it is terrible. Like, I can't stand it. Like, what don't you like, Lori?
People are behind you and you let the door slam. Just going on in terms of in manners. Or just again, people are walking behind you and going in and out of the place. Why wouldn't you think to hold the door? I even put it in a filler where there was a fire drill that happened. And during this fire drill, because we knew it was coming, and one person runs out the door and there's 15 people behind him and lets the door slam. And it's like, are you going to let your people burn? like, what are we doing? But just not thinking about it. Now, I know you will tell me that people are obsessed and they're in their own world and they may not be thinking about it. But if you're thinking about, if you know what number of steps you're taking and you're walking toward a door, there's somebody behind you, just hold the door. That's what I don't like. Just no manners.
Well, I think a
And
lot
then
of
they
that.
want you to be extra nice when it's for them. And it don't go that way.
Well, because they can see what is important to them, but they can't take themselves and empathize with how what they're doing can affect what other people see, because they don't really care. They're people now more than ever, in my opinion, are more self-absorbed than they ever have been. And it's because there's just so many things, whether it's social media and things like that, that just basically, you know, the same things that are good can also be bad. You know, it's two sides of the same coin. Social media has some very good purposes. Hell, it's helped empower out tremendously, but there's some bad things to it too. It changes people's behaviors. People don't see people as people anymore. Everything's so digital. Conversations aren't as real and in depth anymore because everything is so superficial. That's another thing I don't like. I don't like fake ass people. But it's so easy to be fake in this day and age because people don't have meaningful, real conversations anymore. Everything's a text message. Everything is social media. And it's so much easier to create a narrative that doesn't necessarily exist because you never have to be in the same room with that person to create that narrative. And I think a lot of times people shy away from that because they're like, well, if the person really saw me, like, then they would see that, like, I'm messing.
You were just going on the like again.
Yeah, like, you know, but they would see that that person wasn't being as authentic as they tried to present themselves to be online. So I think a lot of people try to create something that they know, hey, Shelly, that they know that they can't maintain. So with that said, though, thank y'all for tuning in for another week of Head to Head with Brian Parker. I am he. And we do this again every Thursday at 7 o'clock here on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Thank y'all for joining us. We will see y'all again next week. Be safe. See you soon.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. I'm a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta